Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of Random Ramblings and Secrets of Rennes le Chateau by Lionel Fanthorpe. Oh, of course, the sun is coming out from behind the clouds, putting glare on my screen, on my camera. I promise I'll find a way to fix that. I haven't been able to climb up and install curtains because I'm gimpy. And the cat has torn down the screens I had, the bamboo screens. I had tacked up some basically bamboo beach mats over the most offensive windows. Hi, Waxy. Hi, Jan. Well, the cats have shredded them and pulled them down. You see, I don't have curtain rods put in. That was my next project that I had planned right before I broke my leg. They call it a broken hip, but it's really the leg bone that broke, not the hip socket. I tell you, old age sucks. It takes forever for things to heal. And I do ask people to help me with certain things, but I was planning to paint the walls and then put up curtain rods. And I'm not asking someone else to paint. I see disaster coming if I go through that bit again. Our local program that helps poor old and disabled people fix up their houses sent me the volunteers from hell. I finally got the porch completely ripped out. The way it was designed, it let water in underneath it, but it didn't let the water out. So, of course, it was a mud puddle underneath. My gas line is rusted from being wet for several years before I finally got someone who knew how to rip out the mess they made and actually got it done. They stacked up 8x8 beams and put them together with 16-inch nails. They can't be pulled apart. They just had to be ripped out in big stacks of what used to be really good lumber, but now has to be thrown out because we can't pry them apart. The siding on my house that was behind the porch has all this water damage because the porch let the water in and didn't let it out, so it never dried. I think that might be cat hair, or, well, it's a reflection. Okay. I get enough cat hair in my coffee without failing to pull it out when I see it. Waxy is scrambling to set up web stuff. Oh, I'm only background noise? Wah. Okay. Let's see. Hi, Waxy. Hi, Jan. Every time I try to hit the letter A, I actually get the caps lock. On an actual keyboard, or better yet, a typewriter, I don't make that kind of mistake. This laptop drives me nuts, but hey, it works. Oh, wow. So last week we kind of started on Francis Bacon. The main reason I did that is that I have a mental block against his name, and I figure that maybe by reading all this stuff about him, it'll indelibly print his name on my mind and I'll remember it. Well, hi, what I think about. I'm just going to write hi, what. That'll confuse people who watch the replay. I have a chatter named What I Think About. And yes, I ramble around for the first few minutes while people file in. I think there is a cat hair in my mouth. Or there was, and I'm still feeling it after it's gone. Trying to figure. The Wita. Oh, what I think about Wita. Wita. Hi, Howard. So anyway, I marked page 100 so I can get to the chapter 7, Magicians, Alchemists, and Men of Mystery. Remember, at Rennes le Chateau, supposedly Father Saunier found some documents that were written in code or cipher. They had to be decoded. That should be right up Wax Webb's alley. Waxy goes by many names, but he's the same tadpole who grew up and became a frog. Hi, Diecast. That would be Dave, so I'll type hi, Dave. Well, let's see. I'm skipping down a ways on the section about Sir Francis Bacon, who might have been the illegitimate child of Queen Elizabeth. There goes that stinking phone again making noise. Let's see. Come on. Come on. Give me the control of my own stinking device. I'll turn it down but not off. And put it. It's still awfully loud. Put it under a pillow. Stinking phone. I really just want my phone to be a phone. But I must admit that sometimes it's useful to be able to just check some messages. Oh, AOL chat rooms. I got so tired of their chat room timing me out just because I had to go pee, and it thought I was inactive on an AOL chat room. Earth Stink never did that to me. Folks, the Diecast In Racing League is Dave. It's easier to type Dave. He has a sweet collection of those little toy cars, like there's two brands, Matchbox and the other one. I remember the Whitley Strieber chat room. That's where I met many of my online friends to begin with, and I only resorted to Facebook because I figured they'd gone there, and they had. The eye itchies, dry skin, impossible hair. It isn't that gray, it's the glare from the windows. It's gray, but not that gray. I wish my hair would just turn silver. I'd love that. Put a little bluing in the conditioner, and silver hair is gorgeous. Matchbox. Hot Wheels. Those are the two big ones that I'm familiar with. Okay, guys. I'm almost awake now. I've been up since 6, quarter till 6. But that doesn't mean I was awake. I just had to feed the cat. Well, I try to avoid conspiracy and paranormal and all that woo-woo stuff, but it keeps coming around and whacking me on the head. Not that it isn't real, but that it's dangerous. It is not for the dilettante. It is not to be messed with. And I will never touch a Ouija board again unless it's to toss it into a fire and get rid of it. I tickled a word nerd. I've forgotten what word I used, but okay. Francis Bacon. Yeah, bacon. What's for breakfast? It's bacon. I'm all out of bacon. I have salt pork, but you cannot just fry it up. It doesn't work. I'm exploring various websites and YouTube videos looking for what you do to make salt pork edible. The main reason I bought it was because the makers of cans of baked beans no longer put a chunk of salt pork into the mix, and I miss it terribly. So I thought I'd just pop some salt pork into the canned beans and simmer them for a while. But apparently, first you have to soak the salt pork in cold water and rinse it to get out most of the salt. Well, there's fat Nazis and salt Nazis. You don't want all the salt in the salt pork. Salt in the beans is good, but and I learned one trick if I'm going to use dried beans. When you soak them overnight in cold water, mix I don't know, teaspoon, or depending on how many beans you're soaking, maybe a tablespoon of baking soda in the water, and then soak them. They come out softer and they're less likely to produce gas. Okay, so I'm skipping down a ways. I'm on page 101 near the bottom, about Francis Bacon. As Francis grew up, he became interested in psychic phenomena as well as in more orthodox philosophy and science. Macaulay's essay on Bacon, on Francis Bacon, not the food, published in 1837, records how the young Francis went to a vault in St. James Park to study an unusual echo which sounded there. I know I read this last week, but I'm reading it again. So there. He also studied the performances of traveling jugglers and conjurers to see whether they produced their startling results by trickery or by using genuinely supernormal powers. Salt smoked Danish cheese. You put salt pork in minestrone? Hi, V. Okay, I could make a rhyme out of that. Hi, V, and Ivy. Okay, back to the book. Francis and his brother Anthony went to Cambridge together in April 1573 when Francis was 12, and they studied at Trinity as pupils of that Dr. Whitgift, who later became Archbishop of Canterbury. 12 years old, going to Cambridge, at Trinity College. Yeah. Education was much better in those days. Okay, let's get Francis Bacon's dates of birth. Francis Bacon. Born 1561, died 1626. So Macaulay is writing about him about 200 years after he died. Someone gave me a block of Gouda cheese. I actually don't know what it tastes like. I've never had Gouda. So how am I going to know whether it's good? Oh, well, anyway. So in the 1500s, 1600s, yes, 12-year-old, nobility went to college. And by the way, you don't, here in the US, you matriculate. I hate that word. Or you enter college. In England, you go up to Oxford or you go up to Cambridge. Oh, well, anyway. back to the book again. Perhaps partly because of the bitter religious controversy between Whitgift and Cartwright's Calvinists, Francis became an astute and penetrating critic of the university system. In The Advancement of Learning, he refers to the excellent liquor of knowledge and complains that instead of getting on with the job of researching and teaching, the so-called scholars are trapped in a narrow Aristotelian framework, and their energies are dissipated in shallow controversies. This idea of knowledge or wisdom as some kind of precious liquid, a wine or an elixir, ties in with Bacon's watermark codes, many of which take the form of grapes and wine jugs. Neither is this attitude to wisdom a million miles away from Philo's ideas as expounded by Professor Bacon of Yale. The coincidence of names is interesting too. Apparently, Professor Bacon of Yale is no relation. So Philo of Alexandria, Philo, he's interesting too. So we should get into him too, but not right now. So, man, there's a lot about Francis Bacon in this chapter, a lot. Shortly after leaving Cambridge, Francis became a member of Gray's Inn, which was then as much of a training ground for aspiring courtiers and statesmen as it was a law school. But his studies here were interrupted by his trip to France in the party led by Sir Amyas Paulet. Sir Amyas Paulet, the newly appointed ambassador. Several historians have suggested that it was while he was on this journey that the, quote, truth, end quote, about Francis Bacon's birth was revealed to him. I'm skipping down a ways to the end of his section. He was fascinated by codes and ciphers, as were many Elizabethans. But in his case, the interest seems to have been more than academic or something employed for simple political security. And the next section is about the Ansons. William, and George. I really don't like the way people in the Middle Ages and early Renaissance tended to name all their sons the same. On the other hand, I really like that George Foreman named all his children George. The girls, of course, would be Georgia, Georgette, etc. All his sons were George. Last night I was listening to a documentary about Charlemagne, Charles the Great, Carolus Magnus, not Carlos, Charles the Great. His brother Charles, his uncle Charles, his father Charles, his son Charles. I'm going, And then they just blithely go on and say, Charles did this, Charles said that. And I'm going, which Charles? I'm totally lost. Have mercy on an ignorant American who doesn't know how to keep all these Charleses straight. And by the way, on YouTube, I keep getting, well, I watch these things and they'll say, oh, you should listen to so-and-so's videos. So I try to watch one, and it's some young person who talks really fast. And I remember when I was in high school, I could understand things that were fast. I could speak fast and hear fast and listen fast. But I'm an old lady now. Slow down. I even catch myself doing it, talking too fast and having to repeat things, especially for people my age and older. One of the worst offenders is Ben Shapiro. I hope that isn't a keyword that YouTube hates. I can't listen to him. I can't hear what he's saying. It's just like rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat. No breaks between words, let alone syllables. Okay, so the Ansons, that's their last name, Anson. William, and George. In the later chapter dealing with the overseas links of Rennes le Chateau, we shall take a closer look at Shugsborough in Staffordshire, where the curious Shepherd Monument still displays its enigmatic inscription. Yes, there really is a monument to the shepherds of Arcadia. It has the inscription, Et in Arcadia ego, Latin for, and I'm in Arcadia. I guess it's supposed to mean heaven. Five John Harwoods, Dave. My ancestors, for a while, had the sense to give their sons different first names. The one exception is my dad. His name was Harry, and his dad was Harry Busby, and they were both accountants, and they were always getting calls to their offices for the wrong Harry Busby. Lego my Arcadia ego. I agree, Waxy. It's supposed to be some wondrous phrase that you must decode. There's not one, but several paintings by Poussin. I knew his first name, yes, Nicolas. Got it. Nicolas Poussin, famous French painter. He painted the monument, the shepherds of Arcadia several times. And one of the Teniers, the father, I believe, also painted that scene around the same time. It's a tomb in the form of a concrete box holding a casket that sits above ground. And in the painting, there's shepherds, sometimes 2, sometimes 4, standing around the sarcophagus and maybe touching it, maybe talking about it. And on the sarcophagus, this concrete box, the words are carved, Et in Arcadia ego. Et is and, in is in, ego is I, as in I, me, my, myself, and I. Arcadia is a special place. Okay, so we'll take a closer look at the Shepherd Monument and its enigmatic inscription. Well, to me, it just seems like something that makes sense to put on a tomb. Okay. But it is interesting to note briefly here that Shugsborough was bought in 1624 by William Anson, a successful lawyer who must have known Sir Francis Bacon, who had risen to become Solicitor General in 1607, Attorney General in 1613, and Lord Chancellor in 1618. Bacon fell from power in 1621, but it was during the period of his greatest legal ascendancy that William Anson of Staffordshire was also a highly successful lawyer. William died in 1644, and his son, also named William, took over the estate, to be followed by yet another William Anson, grandson of the first. The third William was born in 1656 and began building a new hall in 1693. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm skipping. Finally, we get a George Anson who apparently was a pirate. In 1744, George Anson, after enduring desperate hardships, surviving fierce storms, resisting virulent diseases, and winning numerous hard-fought sea and land battles, George Anson sailed home in triumph with the best part of £2 million in Spanish treasure. So he was probably what they called a privateer, a pirate who worked for the crown. England and Spain didn't like each other. Okay. And the final paragraph about the Ansons. During his many voyages, Anson could well have visited sites on coasts that once belonged to Visigoths and Merovingians. In his encounters by sea and land, he could have taken important French prisoners who were willing to exchange secrets of ancient treasures for their lives. So Fanthorpe here is speculating about the source of hidden treasure in the Languedoc of southern France, or near Rennes le Chateau. Next is Victor Hugo. The French poet and novelist Victor Hugo has been named as one of the supposed masters of the Priory of Zion, and just as Poussin and Teniers may have left clues in their pictures, so it has been suggested that Hugo left clues in his epic poem. It's French. La Légende des Siècles, the Legend of Cycles. Well, I'd better look up siècle, because my French is very skimpy. Centuries. Okay, centuries are cycles. Uh-oh, I let the book fall shut. Oh, it's still marked. Yay. Hugo was born at Besson. Okay, when the C has the little doo-woppy on the bottom, that means it sounds like S, I think. Okay, Besançon on February 26th, 1802. And the first 13 years of his life were destined to affect his psychological development dramatically. His father rose high in Napoleon's favor and was, at least in theory, a very wealthy and important man. Victor's mother, however, disliked Napoleon almost as much as she disliked her husband. Oh, God. Arranged marriages come to mind. During their period in Spain, young Victor was treated with suspicion by his Jesuit teachers and with the disdain given to foreign upstarts by his aristocratic Spanish schoolmates. The French didn't like the Spanish either, and it was mutual. In 1812, the French position in Spain was sufficiently precarious for Victor's father to send his family back to Paris. Here his mother hid an elderly political conspirator, General La Horie, from the police, and Victor must have been affected by the tense atmosphere of adventure, suspense, discontent, and intrigue. In analyzing Victor Hugo's work and character, the following factors must be taken into consideration. His education was frequently interrupted. His mother and father were not compatible. His early prospect of wealth and splendor faded into the subsequent disappointing reality of comparative poverty. The ostentation, glamour, drama, and violence of the Napoleonic era were his first encounter with a social environment. And I'll skip, but I'll mention that his mother died in 1821, and Victor continued in poverty because he refused to accept money from his father. Like his mother, Victor hated his father. Okay, let's skip down a ways. He gets into the poem the poem is about Fabrice d'Albenga, Marquis of Finale, and Victor Hugo begins the story when the Marquis is 80 years old. The Marquis adores his granddaughter Isora. I'm trying to find the beginning of this sentence. I'm skipping down a little in the same paragraph. Again, keeping Hugo's love of symbolism in mind, it is possible that brave old Fabrice is a personification of the Templars, or, with the name d'Albenga, even a symbol for the Albigensians or Cathars. Does Finale represent any Templar castle? He's the Marquis of Finale. spelled like the English word final, is Ratbert a cipher for Philip IV? I love the name Ratbert. Ratbert, the bad guy. Or one of his despised agents. The evil the evil Bishop Afranus then becomes a symbol for William, Philip's Grand Inquisitor. The application of torture to Fabrice later in the poem draws the parallel with the Inquisition even more distinctly. Fabrice, like Shakespeare's King Lear, lives in the past and suffers from what Hugo calls holy credulity. Now, here we get to the section of the poem that's more relevant to the secret of Rennes le Chateau. The next section is entitled Un seul homme sait où est caché le trésor. Thank God he translates it. Only one man knows where the treasure is hidden. So apparently, the poem is an allegory about the Knights Templar hiding their treasure. Although recent finds in various places in France do suggest that the Knights Templar broke up their treasure and each one buried a small part of it on a farm, in a field, under the lawn of a manor house, etc. But this is interesting. And it is here that Hugo comes closest to the mystery of Rennes. He describes the value of the income of the estate as sufficient to weigh down 20 mules with massive purses. He describes the location in poetic detail, a tall watchtower in the middle of a blue sky with clear views to the north, south, east, and west, having the four evangelists, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, carved and gilded upon it. So a tower with the four evangelists carved into it. I'm assuming it's a square tower. It has four sides, one evangelist on each of the four sides. Well, there is a Magdala Tower in Rennes le Chateau, but I think it's round. Two chateaux guard the mountain where the tower stands, like stone soldiers with iron beneath their cloaks. I guess that's two houses. The treasure is secured in bolted chests, which, when their lids are raised, reveal glimpses of jewels. The treasure is walled up in a hidden cave, and only the reigning marquis knows the secret. One of the rarest and most dazzling pieces is a priceless helmet decorated with a diamond phoenix rising from a fire of rubies. The remainder of the poem, cat hair on my book, inside it. Okay, the remainder of the poem is as sad as the history of the downfall of the Templars. I'm not familiar with Victor Hugo's poem. I'm skipping way, way down to the end, last two paragraphs. The symbolism is worth a second look when it comes to the beheading at the end of the poem. The evil king, Ratbert or Philip IV, strikes off the head of noble old Fabrice as Philip strikes down Jacques de Molay, head of the Templars, but is immediately struck down as well. Philip IV died in the same year that Jacques de Molay was burned at the stake. The last enigma which Hugo leaves behind is in the preface to La Légende des Siècles, The Legend of Centuries. Quote, all these poems, ... are condensed historical reality or guesses at historical reality, end quote. ... is an ellipsis. It means he left something out. John Napier. Interesting. Well, it's time to put the book down for a moment and check out the chat. I've been neglecting it again. Besides, I'm avoiding the gorilla in the room. Oh, Waxy Web knows about the theremin. I don't know, Oswald. I used to be 5'4". I think I'm down to 5 feet. I'm shrinking. Although if I stretch, if I go to the chiropractor, I come out a little taller. Well, my family has Mormon connections, so they have our family history incredibly far back. I'm tempted to get a DNA test because we were told that our ancestor Louisa Mabel Clark was Cherokee. I want to know. Even though she's rather far back in the family tree, there should be some trace of it in our DNA. Oh, Waxy's thinking about holes in things now, like lacuna. What's the difference? Oswald, that was mean. I'll leave it up, but it's still a mean comment. My ancestors escaped from Salt Lake City, escaped from Utah, and moved to Idaho because they were Joseph Smith Mormons. They despised Brigham Young and accused Brigham Young of having Joseph Smith killed so he could take over. Might be true. Do you suppose that's why we call small inlets lagoons? Lagoon? Something to think about, Waxy. Well, I'm surrounded by Mormons and Scientologists, and I have no use for the hierarchy of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But the people I've met are, in general, good people. I used to be neighbors with one of the high-ranking Mormons. He was the worst neighbor in the world until he found out I used to be married to Philip K. Dick. My granddaughter told him. I never bothered. Oh, I'm a big fan. Okay. So now you like me just because somebody famous, was married to me? Okay. Yeah, I was somewhat upset years ago with a different neighborhood with good Mormon people, nice neighbors. Their dog had puppies and they gave me one. And several months later, they asked me, well, how come his coat is so shiny and soft? My dog, they kept the mother. My dog doesn't have a nice, soft, shiny coat. And I said, well, when I give him dry food, I mix an egg with it. And if I'm out of eggs, I'll put in a tablespoon of vegetable oil, cooking oil, salad oil. They were so frugal that she wasn't allowed to supplement her dog's diet to achieve that healthy, shiny, soft fur. Die casting. Dave's coffee is ready. Thanks, Waxy. Lagoon is Lacuna. Okay, good. Or from Lacuna. I only think of lagoons in connection with Gilligan's Island. Oh no, Lacuna Matata. Oh no. The Lion King is a great story, but the real way that lions, male lions in particular, operate is really brutal. I'm not going to get into details. It's too awful. Though, anyway, you know what the gorilla in the room is. Yesterday, the last of our soldiers came home. No disrespect to our military. Soldiers, sailors, Marines, Coast Guard, any of them. National Guard. Those who served honorably. But I am disgusted by the leadership. There was a busload of students from the American University at the gate on the last day, and the officer in charge would not allow the gate to be opened for them. They're probably dead now. If they aren't dead, they're hostages. And the last planes went out half empty. There was room for them. And some private service organizations have rescued hundreds of stranded Americans. And our government did everything they could to stop them from doing that. I know the usual excuse, even though I haven't heard it from the authorities. Oh, it's dangerous. We might have to rescue you. Well, we know they wouldn't rescue them. Yeah, it's dangerous. But these veterans and others saved hundreds of people from certain death. And there's still hundreds of Americans, maybe thousands, definitely hundreds. The State Department estimates 400 left behind. Oh, that's horrible, Jim Morris. Horrible. Private hire British plane left empty. Hundreds of British charity workers still there. At least one charitable organization, and I don't remember which one, said they're staying. They choose to stay. Foolish. But it's their decision. Most American citizens and visa holders who worked with us want out. And once again, who pulls out the military and leaves the civilians behind? That is not what American military does. They don't even leave dead bodies on the battlefield. They'll risk their lives to retrieve a corpse. How much more will they do for civilians who are still alive but in danger? It's ridiculous. Yes, we need to be out of Afghanistan, but let's face it, we never left Cuba. We have Ramstein base in Germany. We have Okinawa in Japan. We still have a base in the Philippines. We gave them back the other one after the volcano buried it. We have embassies all over the world, and we have military bases all over the world. And after the Orange Man left office, there were only 2,500 American troops in Afghanistan. In order to pull off this pull-out, we had to send in 6,000 more. And we've betrayed our allies. They'll never trust us again. Why should they? As disgusted I am with the current administration, I do worry about the cult of personality that has formed around DJT, the Orange Man. Yeah, he tweeted mean things. But for 18 months, not one American serviceman or woman was killed. Now we've got 13 bodies. I wonder if that's symbolic, seeing as how this all began. The chaos began on Friday the 13th, the same day when the Templars were arrested all over France. Oh, your cat likes to smoke, eh? I'm really disgusted. This did not have to happen. The embassy in Kabul wanted to start evacuating Americans in May, and the State Department told them no. The motto of all the military that they learn in boot camp is no one left behind. Yeah, and in addition to the 13 military deaths, at least 170 civilians were killed, and it's almost certain that there were Americans among them. But whoever they were, they did not have to die. Everything was botched, and I don't blame our soldiers, sailors, Marines. I blame the idiots in DC who sit at their desks making life or death decisions for people they don't care about. Tora is here demanding treats. Come here. You gotta say hi to your adoring fans before you get your treats. Say hello. Say meow. Tora can't meow. All she does is chirp. Yes, dear. Wiggle worm. They're here. Get on your penthouse. Go on. Treats. I'm going to recycle some coffee and then get back to Rennes le Chateau and the Templars and all that. Yeah, wax, we're chess pieces, and on top of that, we're the pawns, the ones you sacrifice. I gotta recycle some coffee. Oh, the Taliban is going door to door killing everyone. Remember, Afghanistan is not America. In Afghanistan, you're guilty until proven guilty. Okay. Thank you, what I think about. I'll be right back. Promise. Dum de dum, dum de dum de dum. Dum-de-dum, dum-de-dum-de-dum. I'm coming, slowly but surely. I lost track of my chocolate bar. I gotta find it. Oh, chocolate. I have to keep putting chocolate in the fridge because it's been so hot. Once it melts, okay, let's see. I need to moderate a comment. This message is held for review. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. I'm gonna hide that. Ah, you don't eat chocolate, Tora. You don't. See? You don't eat that. She sniffs it, tried to lick it. You don't eat chocolate. It's bad for kitties. Yes. There's the ear rubs from Waxy. All right, hop down. See if I care. Um, where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where's the kitty cat treats? This one hasn't been opened, and it's chicken and gravy flavors. Yeah, this is one of those tear here if you dare. There's no notch. Let's just get you the turkey. It's open. Okay, come on. There, here you go. Oh, kitty cats. I have no one to clean up cat puke around here. I'm it. And when I can't get near it, it makes me puke. So I cover it with paper towels and pour a little Pine Sol or something on it and wait. Yeah, well, I didn't exactly go out and get this cat. She was brought to me. Chocolate. Yes. Water, coffee. My water's almost empty. Oh, yeah. Since I live alone, I don't bother shutting the bathroom door. I'm used to cats clawing big grooves into my door if I shut it. My water's empty. Gotta refill. Water everywhere and nary a drop to drink. Water. That's enough about the cat puke. Chocolate. Philip IV of France, called Philip the Fair, was anything but fair. He had borrowed and borrowed and borrowed from the Knights Templar, a wealthy order of Christian knights who took vows of poverty, but the order had tremendous wealth. They started up the beginnings of a modern banking system. Travelers found it difficult to carry their purses, their money. Money was heavy, it was made out of metal. So it was hard to carry a lot of it. And besides, you'd get robbed. So the Templars came up with a system where you got a slip of paper. You give them your money, the Templars give you this document so that when you get to where you're going, you turn in the document to another Templar person or office and you get money. Your money. And of course, they charged a small fee for keeping your money safe and exchanging currencies, stuff like that. They also made loans. You don't loan money, you lend it. I don't know what makes people think loan is a verb, it's a noun. So the Templars would lend money, especially to the nobility. And King Philip IV of France spent extravagantly and borrowed extravagantly. He couldn't pay back the debt he owed to the Templars. Well, he solved that problem, didn't he? On a Friday the 13th, the year 1300 something. Let me check. The Da Vinci Code. Friday, October 13, 1307. Pope Clement V. Okay. Pope Clement V was in on it. But he had moved the papacy to France. He was a Frenchman. So in 1305, Pope Clement V chose to move the papal capital to Avignon, which was the property of papal vassals at that time. So here's Pope Clement V in what has been referred to as the Babylonian captivity of the papacy. He's in France. King Philip of France wants to get rid of the Templars. Interestingly, even though Clement collaborated with Philip and disbanded the Templars, the Vatican has found a document in which Pope Clement V actually absolved the Templars of any wrongdoing. In other words, he said they were not heretics They were not guilty. But the inquisitor in Paris, acting on behalf of the king, found them guilty. After months and even years of torture, they were finally killed. I would say mercifully, but I don't think burning at the stake is merciful. Oh, Oswald, no, Webby, Waxy? All right, who said that? Oh, yeah, Oswald has only $1 to her name, or his name. Um, when a certain leader says the buck stops here, well, that's true if by buck you mean an American dollar. It's everybody else's fault. You can't really honestly blame the Taliban for doing what they do. It's what they do. No surprise. You can't blame the orange man, although they do. But I worry about the cult of personality formed around this one person. It's like no one else will do. Excuse me, but don't count on heroes to save us. We have to do it ourselves. Here in California, we're recalling our governor. Mainly because he ate at a fancy restaurant with a dozen or so of his friends without masks before there was a vaccine. Indoors without social distancing. Well, we couldn't go to our local coffee shop. We could get takeout or delivery. Not the same. That's the real reason people are pissed off at Gavin Newsom. Well, Howard, I'm counting on dying without ever having to pay off my debts. Your children don't inherit your debt. Of course, whatever assets you have will go toward your debt before they can inherit anything. But I've concluded that what we have in this nation is debt slavery. Housing prices have been deliberately inflated so that you have to borrow from the bank, so you don't own your own house. And even if you manage, even if you manage to pay off your mortgage, you still don't own it because you have to pay taxes on it every year to the county. You have to pay taxes for the privilege of living in a house that that you own rather than having a landlord. And those taxes are supposed to go toward your public schools. That was the original purpose of property taxes. Now they go to graft, greed, and corruption. And yeah, maybe the schools get a little, but they get most of their budget from the state. government, not from the county where you pay your taxes. It's not a bribe, Howard, it's extortion. Some mafioso sends you a letter saying, oh, it would be so terrible if we had to take your home and sell it for the taxes that you owe. And so you pay up. Well, anyway, let's see. I gotta toss out the used napkin and get. Okay, did you bring me another lizard, Tora? What have you got there? Huh? She's a lizard hunting maniac. Oh, she got bored with it. No, she's back at it. Tora. You are a bad kitty. Sometimes she just brings in the tail. Just the lizard's tail. Lizard tails keep on flopping for a while. So it's very entertaining, and the lizard gets to live for another day, and Tora is satisfied. I better put the shoes on. There's a lizard on the floor. I wear loafers because I can no longer tie my shoes. Well, I can with great difficulty if I have the time and energy for it. I don't know about moths, but Tora will eat houseflies. I just don't get very many houseflies. Anyway, I'm winding down. It's been almost an hour and a half. And I'm expecting some help around the garden today, if they show up this time. Hi, sweetie. My little feral kitty came in. Tora went outside, so I guess her lizard escaped. Anyway, where was I? Do they still make shoes with Velcro? I don't know. I once had a pair of Reeboks with the Velcro, 2 Velcro tabs. But of course, in my house, the Velcro eventually quit working because of all the cat hair. And it isn't that easy to pull cat hair off of Velcro. Oh, wow. Anyway, I've lost my train of thought. Okay, so the Templars, they caught quite a few of the big high muckety mucks and killed them. But some escaped, and King Philip wanted and needed their treasure. Even with not having to pay back the loans from the Knights Templar, he still needed more money to finance his extravagant lifestyle and his foreign wars. Never found the treasure. Apparently, it had been secretly taken away on board ships just a few days before Friday the 13th, maybe a few weeks before. But some of the treasure was buried in small amounts in various locations. They had a huge treasure. Okay. Huge treasure. Now, as Spain learned sometime later, like in the 1500s, it is not a good idea to dump a huge hoard of treasure onto the market all at once. Philip didn't have the opportunity to learn because he couldn't find the Templar treasure. But Spain brought home so much gold from the New World that they suffered huge inflation of the money. The gold coins were worth less and less. They had an economic disaster because they had all this treasure. It wasn't so bad for the countries where the pirates took their gold because, a pirate would loot one ship, one Spanish galleon. Spain was flooded with gold from the New World. So, even though, gold and silver coins are more valuable than paper money, they are not really a foolproof hedge against inflation because the supply of silver and gold can be inflated. Oh, you put your coffee in a soup mug, huh? Well, I've measured my soup mugs and they really hold about the same amount as my coffee mug. I need bigger soup mugs. Oh well. I'm really nervous more than ever now. Sure, we left Afghanistan, but I hope I'm wrong. But as I said a while back, I foresee a shooting war. The arms manufacturers need to make more money. We have to replace all the equipment and weapons that we left behind. And then we have to use them. It's the same suspicion I had when we went back into Iraq. We needed to use up the old outdated ordnance and replace it with new ones. New and improved weapons of mass destruction. Foreign wars destroyed many countries in the Middle Ages, and they're destroying many countries today. But the sad truth about Afghanistan is that it is not a nation. We had similar problems in the early history of the United States. Each state is a sovereign nation. was, is, and maybe will be if we can hang on to it. The federal government was there to protect the states against foreign invasion and to regulate trade. That was it. Trade among the states and foreign trade. And the federal government was supposed to get its entire budget from tariffs on imports and exports. Well, look at it now. A bloated hedonist eating up the fruits of our labor. Tora, do you have to kill it here? She rarely actually kills them, by the way. She'll go at them, but without the claws. She'd keep her claws retracted and just punch them with a soft paw. Yeah, the arms manufacturers need more profit. The banks need to make more loans. And meanwhile, what is our Congress doing? And by the way, the House of Representatives is not the Congress. The House of Representatives is one house of the two-house bicameral legislature consisting of the Senate and the House of Representatives. So if the media talking heads would start calling those people representative instead of congressman or congresswoman, we wouldn't get so confused. What is the Congress doing? Well, let's see. Right now they're doing nothing. But the House called a special session. Good old Nancy Pelosi. To deal with the crisis that began on Friday the 13th? No. To find new and better ways to tax American workers so they can fund their wish list. And it isn't just Democrats. It's all the Republicrats. Even the ones who speak up and sound good on YouTube videos. What are they doing? It's like, yeah, they talk a good line, but what are they doing? So once again, it's time to urge you to write, call, email, sign petitions, contact those who claim to represent you. They might not listen to you, but I know one thing for sure. They'll never hear you if you don't speak up. And they do like to get reelected. Of course, they might not need, in light of recent events, they might not need actual real voters voting for them anymore. We're living in Venezuela. Of course, the incumbent wins. He runs the elections. The only way they change their El Presidente is assassination, and we don't do that here. Not since 1963. Now, my family did not like JFK. They thought he was a communist. But he was more conservative than most Republicans today. But they were horrified when he was murdered. Let's see, who else got shot? Garfield got shot. McKinley got shot. Abraham Lincoln got shot. One guy tried to shoot Andrew Jackson, but his pistol misfired or didn't fire at all. And Jackson picked up his cane or walking stick and beat the crap out of the guy. They called him Old Hickory for a reason. Now, I am seriously pissed about what Andrew Jackson did to the Cherokee and other Native Americans. Think Trail of Tears. But he killed the national bank that Hamilton wanted to set up. Let me just check Alexander Hamilton's date. Oh yeah, Squeaky tried to shoot Ford, and someone shot Reagan. Oops. Alexander Hamilton died in 1804, and Andrew Jackson became president later. So I wrote Andrew Jackson with an H instead of a J. He was president 1829 to 37, so he served 2 terms. But, they kept the reason Aaron Burr shot Hamilton in a duel, so it wasn't exactly murder. It was mutual combat. Was over the bank. Hamilton wanted a national bank. Well, the idea of a national bank rose its ugly head again under Andrew Jackson, and Jackson put a stop to it. And by the way, when we say Cherokee, strictly speaking, they're not all one tribe. They have many subgroups that before the Trail of Tears, the march to Oklahoma, they didn't necessarily live in the same geographic location, not even bordering locations. They were all over the eastern United States. And the Seminoles of Florida are mostly Cherokee, descendant from Cherokee who escaped and didn't go on the Trail of Tears. They're off the reservation. I think Seminole means something like someone who escaped. I think maybe my friend they're here to help. I gotta go. I gotta type this. Thank you all for listening. I have help in the garden today. Catch you all again, maybe sooner than you think. Bye.
Yes, sir.